So long, Joe. Good night. This is the story of a man and his job, a Pratt Whitney foreman, and some of his problems and vital responsibilities. We find him at the close of his shift. His day's work is ended, at least as nearly as a day's work ever is in these times. What's his name? Oh, it might be Smith or Riley or Swanson or Ludwig. Just call him Joe. Joe might be almost anybody. Might be you, for that matter. Just another Pratt & Whitney foreman, doing the impossible and doing it well. He doesn't wear any gold braid, and he doesn't push buttons. Hi, Joe. But he's a key man in Pratt & Whitney management. Sort of a top sergeant in the battle of production. And any general knows it's the top sergeants who win battles.
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, and it makes you feel pretty good, too, knowing you had a part in putting it there. Yeah, sometimes I come out a little tired, maybe a little ornery, because everything didn't go just exactly my way. Then I see one of those babies boring a hole through the sky, and I think what it means. And just that quick, everything's all right again. Let's stick around a few minutes. Maybe we'll see some more of those cloud cutters. I get an awful kick out of looking at those jobs. Kind of makes you feel like you want to stick out your chest and be proud you're a foreman. After all, we're the ones that have to take the plans and the ideas. Yes, and the prayers, the guys up in front, and turn them into engines. Dependable engines, and deliver enough of them to make good our promises. Tain't easy. Sometimes I think it's the toughest job in the plant. But I wouldn't trade it for any other job in the world. Does a fella good to take a long look at the plant once in a while and think of himself in terms of the whole operation. I guess there's nothing in the world to equal this industrial setup. I always like to watch the faces of visitors. The more they know about production, the more their eyes pop. Yeah, it's beautiful machinery, all right, but machines alone can't give you production. It's people that count most. It takes men to run machines, and women, too. Lots of women today doing what we used to call a man's job. It takes men to set up the machines and keep them running. It takes men and women to check the work, protect our good name. All down the line, it's people, people, people. Human hands and brains that do the guiding and thinking for the machines. All kinds of people, all kinds of jobs. Thousands of people all working together as one big team. And we've got a whale of a job running that team. Shucks. It's easy to handle machines and material. It's handling people that makes a foreman's job a success or a headache. There's some sort of $2 word for it. Yeah, human relations. But what the hell? It's just getting along with people, treating them like you'd want to be treated, getting them to work with you instead of against you. Of course, that's nothing we don't already know. Trouble is, sometimes we're so busy with our own problems we can't, at least we don't, get the other fellow's point of view. And that's where we start making our own jobs tough.
Now, wait a minute, Joe. Just what do you mean by that?
Well, let's think of an example. Take a simple thing like breaking in a new operator. It's his first day on the job. He's green. He's confused and strange. He's had a million questions fired at him, signed a lot of papers. He's anxious to make good and scared he won't. Finally, maybe after wandering all over the plant, he finds the right department, and you. But you're busy, so you take the easiest way, at least what seems the easiest way. You push him over on the group leader. But he's busy too, so he takes his cue from you. He takes the easy way and shoves him on to watch some operator on a similar job. And there they stand, a couple of strangers, both embarrassed. Does the new man learn anything? Nothing except to hate his job, even before he starts. Let's stop this and start all over again. Here comes your new man. You're busy. You're up to your ears in things to do. You're on your way someplace. But hold it right there. That's right. Now think. Can you spare 1 minute to get this man started right? Haven't you a minute to treat him the way you'd like to be treated? All right then. Don't give him the brush off. Let him know his boss is also his friend. Talk to him about his past experience. Not like a third degree, but because you're interested. Let him know he's welcome. Call over the group leader. Introduce the new man by name and be sure you pronounce it right. Explain to both of them that you're sorry you won't be able to start the new man yourself, but that you know the group leader will carry on for you. Right there, you've given the leader his cue to do the job right. And if he's been properly instructed, he'll come through. One of the first steps in getting acquainted should be to meet the timekeeper, who will show him how to handle his time card. Oh, I know that may sound like nursemaiding, but you know how much time he'd have to bird dog his card during the change of shift stampede. So it's well worth the few minutes it takes now for the timekeeper to familiarize him with his time clock procedure, how to locate his card quickly, and how to check in and out. Generally, the getting acquainted process can be combined with visual instruction. The group leader introduces a new man to an experienced operator on the same job and suggests they get together at lunchtime so the newcomer can learn the cafeteria procedure. Then watch the old-timer run a job. There are a lot of details and techniques which the new man can learn from watching the experienced operator. And in this friendly atmosphere, he won't hesitate to ask questions. In passing, I might add that if the new operator happens to be a woman, it's all the more important to make her acquainted with other women in the department. There are always a lot of personal questions and problems which women can best settle among themselves. If you're smart, you'll give them that opportunity, or you may be wearing an awfully red face sometime. But man or woman, before the new operator starts on production, the group leader should familiarize him with all the tricks and habits of his particular machine. Finally, he starts running the job himself. He knows he's being watched and judged. Sure, he's hesitant and self-conscious, and he needs encouragement. So the group leader sees him through until he gets the hang of things. His should be an attitude of patience. Let him stress the fact that he expects the newcomer to swing in gradually, that making honest mistakes is no crime, but trying to hide them is. And of course, he should be instructed in proper safety precautions, and the fundamentals of good housekeeping applied to his machine and the immediate surrounding area. And of course, that includes making sure that various kinds of chips, rags, and rubbish are put into their proper containers. That's a war order nowadays. Impress upon him right from the start the importance of putting finished parts in the proper containers so they won't be nicked, scratched, or marred. Once he's started right, he'll be apt to stay in the right channel. Gradually, your new man begins to hit his stride. After he's got into the swing of things, call the timekeeper and get him acquainted with his paperwork. Too often, we're inclined to overlook the importance of these job tickets. But after all, this is the only analysis you and I have of the spending of many thousands of dollars a week in our departments. It's vitally important that we have a breakdown of how that money is being distributed. So while your new man is in the most impressionable stage, teach him the importance of his own individual job breakdown. And let him know that the timekeeper is there to help him keep his record straight. Finally, as you leave the new man, let him know that he's not cast adrift. Impress upon him that the group leader and you are there to help him in any way you can. He's one of the family. So in practically no time, your new man is a producer, and he's your man for good. They say a good top sergeant shares all the joys and troubles of his men. Well, of course, you and I can't be too nosy, but it sure keeps up spirits if your men know you got a friendly interest in them. Pays off in production, too. A little while ago, one of my grinders stopped me and said she had to take some time off, 3 or 4 days or a week. She didn't feel good. In fact, she was too sick to work. Well, of course, I knew that was a stall. I also happen to know her husband's in the Army. And her 2 kids are living with a sister up in New Hampshire. I knew it was no use to send her to medical, so I said, maybe you're a little homesick to see those kids, eh? Can't say as I blame you. Well, she almost busted out crying. Well, I arranged to get her a Wednesday following our regular day off, so she'd have 2 days to get back and forth to see the youngsters. Knowing her, I knew I'd get the time back, and I did. As it turned out, that day was a mighty good investment, because a little later she admitted that if I'd have turned her down, she'd have gone AWOL, or quit her job. When you're dealing with people, you gotta know people. He's got 5 daughters, but he's hoping for better luck in a couple of months. That guy raises the best cantaloupe in Connecticut, and I know. There's a woman whose son was on Wake Island. Ever hear of it? There's a guy who's building his first house. All finished, but he can't get any plumbing. Sure, it's funny, but not to him. Yeah, you gotta know people, and you also gotta know how well they're physically qualified for their jobs. For instance, that young fellow. To look at him, you might think he could pick up that machine and walk away with it. He isn't going to come around and tell you he's got a trick back, but his put-on slip will. You see that medical symbol? You know what it means? Well, you better. Because if you put him on a job that requires any heavy lifting, you're going to have an injury case on your hands. Maybe a permanent one. And that fellow. Never know to look at him that he has occupational restrictions. But his medical symbol tells you at a glance that he's allergic to oil. I know that lots of times when I've had some muscle job I wanted done in a hurry, my first reaction is to grab the first half dozen men I see and get the job done. But nowadays, that's dynamite. Now, we really can't afford to pass out any new jobs without first taking a good look at the medical history of the men who'll do them. But how many times do we take that trouble? And yet, look here. In that one group, there are a couple of bad hernias, a weak back, and 2 heart cases, as you'd find if you traced down those medical symbols. Just suppose I had followed the first impulse and had called those men in for an odd job of lifting. Sure, they'd have come. And they'd have tackled the job, too. No man wants to admit he's physically unfit, even to himself, and especially to his boss. So the chances are they'd have done just as I'd asked them. And then maybe... No, thanks. Not for mine. Looking at it from just a cold-blooded standpoint, you've lost 2 producers you can't afford to lose. So believe me, it's just common sense to leave that kind of jobs to guys who are supposed to handle them. Even if it's a matter of just switching jobs in the department, let's be sure that the man is physically okay for the new job. If you can't tell just by the symbol on the card, call medical and check with them. You know, I've often heard it said that the men put their foreman in the middle. But I wonder if it isn't the foreman who puts himself in the middle. I had one experience along that line that sure taught me a lesson. A fella came to me for a raise.
So I says to myself, if other guys on the same job are getting raises, why ain't I? And I thought I'd put it right up to you. Now, how about it?
Okay, Charlie, you're a pretty good fella. Maybe you were just overlooked. To show you how I feel about it, I'll put a raise through for you right here in front of you. Shirley Grimes.
Well, okay. Thanks. I'll be looking for it next payday.
A lot of fellows I'd rather see get a pay increase before him.
Oh, well, maybe a raise will help pep him up a little. Give him something to live up to.
Yeah, maybe.
Here, put this through. But don't let it get around the shop. You know.
Okay, I know.
Well, I guess you know what happened. Job evaluation checked up and found that my own rating of the man didn't entitle him to a raise. I didn't have a leg to stand on. I was just sitting right in the middle of it. So, next payday...
Yeah, but you said next payday I'd get my increase.
Oh, no, I didn't. Now, get it straight. I said I'd put through a request. And I did. You saw me. The management turned you down, that's all.
Yeah, but you said
I did everything I could for you, Charlie. I'm sorry.
Nuts.
Management turned him down. Who is management? Why, out in the plants, it's me, damn it. Right that minute, I could see what I should have done. When he first came to me...
If other fellas on the same job are getting raises, why ain't I?
Well, I don't believe you're entitled to a raise on the basis of the job you've been doing. But let me recheck, and I'll let you know what to find out.
Okay, I'd sure be much obliged.
Take care of that, will you, Pete, and check up for me?
I think I know what the answer will be.
Well, anyway, let's get our last rating on this fellow. And also check to see if there have been any recent changes.
Right.
In a couple of days, we had the full story. On my last rating, I had marked this man way down in dependability. His production was only fair. And according to my more recent records, he hadn't improved any since the last rating. So next day, I called the fellow in.
Say, I was wondering what's new on my chances for a raise.
Well, I'll tell you, Charlie. I'll put it up to you on the basis of your record. Look here. Here's your previous record on production. Nothing to brag about, is it, Charlie?
Well, not exactly. Not then.
And it doesn't seem to have picked up much since, would you say?
No, not an awful lot.
And your dependability. Frankly, Charlie, that was pretty bad at your last rating.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I had a lot on my mind, man.
And since then, you've been AWOL 3 times. That doesn't help much.
3 times?
Why, sure, don't you remember?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's right.
So, Charlie, put yourself in my place. On the basis of your last record, would you say that you were worth a raise?
Well, looking at it that way, I suppose not. But I could be.
You're darn right you could be. Your quality rating is good. Your adaptability rating is right up there. And Pete Martin tells me you've got the makings of a top-notch producer. So it's up to you. I'll tell you what. Pete, keep an eye on Charlie for a while, will you? And see if you can't help him iron out this production lag.
Sure, glad to. I think maybe I know the answers. Some of them, anyway.
And this AWOL thing, that's strictly up to you, Charlie. And in these times, well, you know what that means.
Yeah, I know. And it won't happen again.
Turn out the kind of job that let me give you the rating you ought to have.
All right. And if I do?
You do, and you won't have to ask for a rate change. It'll come through automatically.
Okay.
Attaboy. What a difference. Instead of a sore head nursing a grouch, I've got his respect. And I've got another man on the upgrade. You know, it's that keeping men on the upgrade that marks a real foreman these days. The more production every individual turns out, the sooner we're through with Mr. Schickelgruber and those slant-eyed sons of Jap heaven. Speaking along the lines of individual production brings to mind one of the fellas in the shop. Maybe you know somebody like him. He's good only for the simplest kind of bench or machine job. And then somebody has to set up his job and gauge his work for him. Anytime you put him on some new job, the group leader practically has to lead him through it by the hand. He takes up the group leader's time. He turns out scrap that's charged against your department. You'd think he was a dope, but look at his face. Hell's fire, he's intelligent enough. He could be a darn good man for you, but he just doesn't know shop practice. So what are you going to do about him? You haven't the time or the facilities to train him. The answer is send him to the training school, of course. But wait a minute. Let me give you a swell example of how not to start him off. Now, well, never mind what you and I think of this going to school business. It doesn't take long, and even though you may feel a little silly, it can't hurt you. You might even pick up something that'd do you a little good. Anyway, all you'd lose is your bonus, and when you come out, I can get you a raise.
How long does it take?
Oh, I don't know, a little while, a couple of weeks more or less.
Well, I don't know.
It's the only way I can get you a raise, Al. You better think it over. It won't take long. Now, that's a hell of a way to start him out, isn't it? Why not tell him what a course in shop training really means, and what it means to him? Let's try that again. Of course he isn't interested in just going to school, but he does want to better himself. Al, the only limit on your value in this shop is your own ability as a producer. You're smart, you're willing, you've got all the makings, but you're just not trained. Until you are, you'll always be handicapped. But lucky for you, we have a training school. Here in a few weeks, you can learn the fundamentals that most of us had to spend years sweating out the hard way. It takes you through a course in blueprint reading and gives you a good groundwork in shop mathematics. Also the design and purpose of all basic machine tools, setup and operation. Here you'll get both a general and a specific understanding of the various types of tool design and handling which have made aircraft the top machine shop of this country, in fact of the world. Just to show you what Pratt Whitney thinks of the importance of this training, your base pay is continued all the time you're in the school. And as soon as you've completed the course, well, it's only reasonable to assume that you can step into a better job with better pay immediately. And from then on, well, as I said, the only limit on your value in this shop is your ability as a producer. Will he go for that course? I'll say. And just wait till he comes back. Incidentally, hasn't it ever occurred to you that maybe we would be a lot smarter if instead of taking some man off the street to handle a job, we first found out whether the training school could furnish the men we need? Of course, there's more than one way of fitting a man to a new job. One way, well, let me give you an imitation of Foreman Mortimer Thud. It's really pretty funny. One bright day, a new machine suddenly appears in the department of Foreman Mortimer Thud. It comes as a great surprise to Mr. Thud. He asked for it only 3 months ago. But everything surprises Mr. Thud. Now what to do about it? Probably ought to have someone to run it. Yes, sir, and quick. And so, at long last, Mr. Thud lets the employment office in on his little secret. This job requires a pretty good man. You don't find them on bushes these days, especially on a day's notice. But that means nothing to Mr. Thud. When the machine is set up and ready to go, he expects a man ready to go to work. And if the man isn't quite as experienced as Mr. Thud would like, well, that's the fault of employment, of course. Yeah, it's good comedy. But if you're interested in efficient production, there's a better way. Actually, the time to start picking the new man is when the job comes up, as soon as you know the machine is coming. You know the job, you know the machine. So it's principally a problem of finding the man for the job. If you need any help in setting up the qualifications of the job, as in the case of a new or unfamiliar machine, call job evaluation and get a job analyst to help you. You establish the requirements of the job, he translates your requirements into a job rating specification. In any event, set up your manpower specifications fully and early, and give employment a chance to get the man you want with the training and experience necessary to handle the job. Maybe he's already in the file of availables. Maybe he'll be coming out of training school in a couple of weeks, just when you're ready for him. Maybe employment will have to send out a dragnet. But in any case, if you give ample advance warning, let employment know what you need as soon as you know, there's a far better chance that by the time the machine is set up and ready for production, the new man will be on the job. And he'll be an experienced hand, ready to start producing. The operation, the man, and the machine, all fitted to the job by experts. Gosh, what a lot of headaches we'd save ourselves if only we didn't shy away from calling for help when we need it. I used to think that a foreman was supposed to know everything. What? Shucks, nobody knows all the answers. The really smart guy is the one who knows where to get them. And just bear this in mind. When you're dealing with staff departments, you're dealing with people. After all, departments are made up of people. People trying to do a job the same as we are. Even time study. Well, I've known the day when I'd almost cheer if some operator'd complain he couldn't make his time. I'd get time study on the line and yap like a fox terrier. Then once as we were all standing around watching the job running, it suddenly came to me that we were all watching through different eyes. What I saw was a workman, willing, loyal, conscientious, turning out a quality job. And I'm thinking that with finished stores on my tail for more production, maybe I better get another machine and another operator. My group leader is looking at production, man and machine. He sees the tools are properly set. Everything's up to speed and running just as the book says. So if the card says the man is behind schedule, in the group leader's eyes, the operator must be to blame. But the time analyst gets an entirely different picture. He sees that the operator has to walk over and reach down to pick up stock, He sees the operator standing idle as the machine runs through its cycle, then gauging the pieces while the machine stands idle, and finally wasting more time and energy stepping over and leaning down to pack the finished pieces. Well, after watching a while, this time analyst made some changes, like shifting the material boxes so as they'd be easier to reach, and little time savers like gauging and packing the finished part while the machine was running its operating cycle. A lot of little things like that. None of them very important, but altogether, well, the upshot of it was the operator made his time, and with a lot less personal exertion, too. Of course, I'd always thought these time analysts were guys with thick glasses and a fraternity pin. But shucks, this fellow had been an operator himself. He wasn't going on any highfalutin amateur theories. He had the advantage of experience all over the plant, even in experimental. Naturally, if the job had really needed a new time rate, I'd have got it, don't worry about that. But the funny part of it was, after watching this guy, my group leader got to thinking, and he came up with a new setup that really made the job a lead pipe cinch. Now, I like to see a group leader or anybody use his head to cut production time. But it better be a real improvement, not the kind of shortcut I once took. We were honing knuckle pin holes on the master rods, and I was having trouble getting the bottom diameter to size. So I got a bright idea. The sheet said, hone all holes from one end. But I thought, why not just flop it over and hone it from both ends? So simple. Nothing to bother telling production engineering about. And boy, did it solve my problems. Cleaned up the other ends in no time. Well, those rods went on through subassembly, out onto the floor where they were built into engines, and on through test. Not until the first engine through test was torn down for inspection did they discover just how much my bright idea was really helping production. The holes I had honed were not in perfect alignment, so my master rods were not only scrap, but were making scrap out of sets of knuckle pins and link rods by scoring them. It was slowing down production right along the line. Of course, they traced it right back to me. And mister, you better believe my face was plenty red. Sure, I should have called production engineering. They would have told me my idea was okay, but be sure to change my setup to ensure proper alignment. All I needed was a universal honing head. Now look, here's my point. It's the responsibility of production engineering to design and develop all the tools, the methods, and the operations of production. That's their job, and I say let them do it. Oh, I don't mean I won't disagree with them from time to time, and I don't say I won't get new ideas, but from now on, I'm tossing all my ideas in their laps first, believe me. Yeah, we sure have a lot of people to deal with in a job like ours. But every one of them can help make our job a little easier if you'll just give them a chance. Take a guy like the stock chaser. Maybe sometimes you think he's just a jerk. But oh boy, if you don't check with him on shortage items and schedule accordingly, you can sure find yourself paddling the wrong way. Like when you get an order to run some spare parts and you think you've got a fat production inventory piled up. So instead of piecing out on light machines, you decide to tear down a production setup. And instead of letting the stock chaser in on the secret, you go right ahead. And just about the time the spare parts job is set up and running, you'll learn that because of unusual demand or spoilage or something, your fat inventory has melted away. And now with the assembly line about ready to start screaming, you're set up for last year's spare parts. And the stock chaser begins to wonder who's doing what to who. Just people. Everyone with a job to do and everyone trying to do his job. And some of those jobs aren't any too pleasant either, unless you're willing to help. Take the guards on the gate, for instance. They're not just nosy. It's their job to see that nobody but authorized employees get through those gates. In these times, you know how important that is, and you and I can make it a lot easier for them. When you come through the gate, let them see your badge. Set an example for your men. Let them see how you feel. And of course, they'll follow your lead. And in the plant, if you run across something that looks like theft, don't try to play detective yourself. We have trained men for that job. Leave the evidence intact. Keep others from meddling, and call plant protection immediately. The same applies if you discover something that looks as if it might be sabotage. Maybe it's an accident, but maybe it isn't. Let the experts decide. And in the meantime, don't let the evidence get all cluttered up with fingerprints. Put on a hands-off sign and call plant protection. We Americans are notorious pranksters. We love our little jokes. But this is wartime. No time for monkey shines. And besides, those practical jokes have a way of building up. Each gag becomes just a little worse. Finally, somebody really gets offended or hurt. Then, the first thing you know, production is stopped on half a dozen machines and you've got a couple of people who have to be fired. So step on those monkey shines early. They only make your job tougher in the long run. And that brings up another thing. I wonder, has it ever occurred to you that maybe you and I make each other's jobs tougher without even knowing it? Some little thing like, not giving the foreman of the following shift the whole picture of work in progress? I don't mean deliberately holding out, of course. Just not giving him the cooperation, the consideration we'd like to be given. 9 times out of 10, it's unintentional, just plain carelessness. Let me give you an example. One day, a marked blueprint and flag came down from requirements. Some changes on a hot part. You know how it is. Good God, do we have to change over the whole line?
No, only after Operation 27. But finish up all parts and process that have been through 27 by the old print. We can use them.
Well, okay, then everything I've got in here has been through 27.
Well, then it's a cinch. Just keep going on the old sheets till some new stuff comes through.
We'll worry about that tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Oh, change coming through?
Yeah, but it doesn't affect us today. We'll carry on with the old sheets. I guess I better leave instructions.
That all you're gonna say?
That's enough. Any more, just be confusing.
Okay.
At the shift change, when I was cleaning up with Jerry Moore, who follows me, the question came up again. We didn't say much about it, but I guess what he thought was plenty.
Any squawks from the floor, or are we out ahead of them?
No, Jerry, we're doing all right. But nobody better turn around to sneeze.
Oh, well, it's always like that. Hey, what's this, a change?
Yeah, there's a memo covering it. You just go on as you are, though. It doesn't affect you yet.
That's the story, huh?
A hell of a memo that is.
Yeah, just carry on with the old sheets. That's what it says, doesn't it?
Okay, Joe.
Sure I will, big shot. Don't let me bother you.
Well, take it easy, Jerry. Anything you want, just call me.
Sure, Joe. So long.
Sure, I'll call you. A pig's eye.
Uh-oh, change, huh? We got the new sheets?
Oh, we follow the old sheets.
Follow the old sheets? Why, how we...
See what it says? Follow the old sheets. Maybe we're not supposed to know why.
And so that shift went along following the old sheets. Of course, that was as it should be, luckily. But when the shift changed again...
Hey, Jerry, there's something wrong here. The old sheets don't match this marked print.
Read the memo, that's all I know.
I'm not sticking my neck out.
Okay. Sure is funny, though.
Yeah, lots of things are. So long.
So long, Jerry. Hey, Ed.
Yeah?
Hey, maybe I'm screwy, but here's a marked print and a memo that says to use the old operation sheets.
Well, that's nuts. You can't do that.
Well, Jerry Moore just turned in the whole shift that way.
Why, he couldn't. Look here. And here and here. Not with the old sheets, you don't.
Shut down the job, Ed.
You mean stop the job?
I mean, I'm not going to work a whole shift producing scrap. Shut it down.
Okay, so she's down.
Well, of course, when I turned to on my shift, all hell was popping. And I was doing my share. You mean to say you shut down the job as hot as that is? Why, man, why?
Hey, look, Joe, I'm used to riding wild horses around here, but not when they're running different directions. Nobody can make a part like this print with the old sheets.
Why, of course not. You're not supposed to. Good God, can't a man pass on intelligent instructions from one shift to another?
I sure wish we could. All I get's a damn fool note that doesn't mean a thing.
Let me see that. Oh, a damn fool note that doesn't mean anything. Well, I'd stuck my neck out, so I just left it out, expecting to catch plenty. Well, it's a funny thing. Right then, I got to know the foreman of the preceding and following shifts better than I ever had before. And believe me, they're okay by me. And I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, a little more understanding between people sure can make a whale of a lot of difference. A mighty big place, a lot of departments, working 3 shifts a day. Yet in another way, it's just one department and one shift, 24 hours a day. Come right down to it, we all got just one job. We know what it is. It's your fight and my fight, all of us working together all the time. The only trouble is sometimes we can't see the whole pattern. How would you like to talk to somebody who keeps his eyes focused on the whole operation all the time? Somebody like our general manager, Jack Horner.
One of the major responsibilities of management, meaning you and I, is to get over to the workman what we want done and how we want it done. For after all, it is the workman who cuts the metal, who inspects the parts, and who assembles and tests the engines. Money, machines, and materials are all essentials, but it's the men who make an accomplished fact out of a management plan. It is difficult to visualize how the activities of the men in the various departments dovetail into the perfect pattern of production until you have seen the assembly line. Here is the results of the brains, hearts, and hands of every man in Pratt Whitney aircraft. For above all, this is a cooperative effort, sparked by loyalty and fired by a determination to do the job in the best way possible, always recognizing that it's teamwork that wins. No matter how well the job is tooled, nor how much material is banked up against the first operation, the job depends on men, on the quality of our personnel. Dependable engines can only be built by dependable men. This is a challenge to you, for it is your responsibility to see that our men are dependable and that they do the right job in the right way.
This war is pretty close to us. We know we're going to win or lose according to our ability to dominate the skies. We're turning out dependable power. Now it's just a matter of turning out enough power to do the job. And, mister, we aim to win this war.